Now, solar is not new to the tariff game. Actually, there have been tariffs on solar equipment going all the way back to 2011 with some anti-dumping laws that were put into play. But most notably, the most important tariffs that have been in the recent memory have been in 2018 when the first Trump administration established new tariffs on solar imports. These would be on solar cells and modules that were imported, minus the first 2.5 gigawatts imported and imports from certain developing nations. These first imports were set at 30% and set to decrease by 5% per year ending in 2022. Now, President Biden actually extended these in 2022, keeping the rate at 15%, but doubling the imported amount that can be exempt from any tariffs. At the time that these tariffs were being put into play, a lot of people in the industry fought hard against them, and their argument being that these tariffs were only going to increase prices for end-user consumers, because by the time it would take to plan and open new module factories here in the United States, the tariffs would already be over, and people would just end up paying higher prices since we were going to still continue to import about 80 to 90% of the modules that we used. But given the perspective now of time, let's look back at those tariffs and see what the actual impact was. In 2020, the U.S. International Trade Commission, the ITC, published a 500-page study looking at the impacts of those Section 201 tariffs. Now, this 500-page study, if you really want to read it, I will link it in the video description. But to hit a couple of the highlights for you, basically what they noted from this study was from 2018 to 2019, solar imports actually increased during this time, even after those tariffs were put into play. And the reason for this is that we actually saw some domestic production of solar cells close down, but some new module production increase. The idea here is that it ended up being cheaper for US companies to import the raw materials, just the solar cells, and then assemble the modules and sell them from here in the United States, although it wasn't a huge part of our industry. Now, what about the job loss that was expected and everyone was looking for? Well, the Solar Foundation publishes a national census every year of the solar industry and a lot of data in it. In this study, they looked at the jobs, and what they found in November of 2018 was that solar employed about 242,000 people, which was a 3.2% decrease from the previous year. One of the main reasons for this is they cite uncertainty over the outcome of those Section 201 tariffs. In their 2023 census, released more recently, the Solar Foundation actually found that solar now employs about 280,000 people. So even though there was a small tick in the short term right after those tariffs were put into play, the industry has continued to grow from there. One of the most noticeable difference, though, after the tariffs is kind of what everybody is concerned about, and that is end user pricing. There has been a noticeable increase in pricing over time. Now, over a longer period of time, say 15 to 20 years, solar pricing has had a steep decline. But in the last few years, since those tariffs were first put in place in 2018, we've actually seen a flattening of that curve and even an increasing in some prices. Studies that were put together by the SEIA, the Solar Energy Industry Association, and Wood Mackenzie found that in 2018, the average residential U.S. price per watt for solar systems was about $3.05 a watt. It actually decreased a little bit down to $2.92 per watt in 2019, but has steadily increased since then. And they note that today, in the first half of 2024, the average U.S. residential price is sitting about $3.25 a watt. Now, commercial and utility scale projects have also seen this same flattening and increasing of curves, but those are a much lower value just because of their economy of scale. In more recent years, too, there's been an even bigger push for domestic manufacturing, with a lot of manufacturers now opening up their doors here in the United States. The supply chain issues with the pandemic has had a lot to do with that as well. But we already see a ton of manufacturers producing goods domestically. Panel manufacturers like Q-Cells, Canadian Solar, Silfab, and inverter manufacturers like Enphase and SolarEdge already have operating factories and are pushing out product to U.S. consumers. So that'll help to decrease costs as we continue to go forward. So what effect are any of these new tariffs potentially going to have? Well, the president-elect has vowed to have anywhere from a 10 to 20% tariff on all imports coming in. He's also saying about at least a 60% tariff on anything coming in from China and other Southeast Asian countries, and potentially anywhere from 25 to 100% tariffs on goods coming in from Mexico. So knowing what we know about what happened in the industry, this can give us a little bit of an insight into what might happen. Now, in the short term, what we'll likely see with new tariffs coming in is a small loss in jobs, but the industry will probably continue to push through. Solar has shown itself to be an absolute powerhouse and continue to make sense for homeowners. So I don't expect that we're going to see massive drop offs. If anything, it will be small amounts in the short term and then continued growth as time goes on. What we will likely see is going to be price increases, unfortunately. Notably here, the previous tariffs only applied to solar cells and modules. These tariffs are being talked about are going to be on all imports. So anything else that is imported, like racking, wiring, cables, anything else that's going to go into solar are also going to be subject to higher costs. So end users are probably going to see continued increased costs over time. But in the long term, we should expect that solar is still going to continue to get cheaper, especially as we do get more domestic production here and we bring more equipment in. Also, the other thing here is that soft costs are a big part of the total cost today. So with more policy in place to potentially decrease these soft costs or more scale going into it, long term, we should still see the industry continue to grow as it has been, even though we'll have to deal with some short-term hardship. If you like this video, found it helpful, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment down below. What are you and your business doing to prepare for these tariffs?